Welcome everyone. One quick note before we begin. If you want to ask questions or participate in the poll, just jump to Slido, hashtag IMEX, there you go, IBTM22, and that will let you download the app through which you can ask questions and polls. If one of the questions is which show are you at, then IBTM is the answer, and apologies there for managing to get that one wrong. Who am I? Hopefully I can get this right. So I'm Matt. I've worked with Cvent for about 8 years supporting our clients in Europe. That experience started in the association space. I've helped in mid-market corporate, and then the last 4 years have all been helping in what we'd call regulated industries. That's primarily life sciences and finance, where there are lots of rules around what you can do with your events that make the technology you apply to it even more important. So that's me. As to what we're talking about today, it's the goodness of an event. And we've purposefully used quite an ambiguous term there. So I think probably the best place to start is for us to just check what that might mean to people before we attempt to define that a little bit more. So if you jump onto that Slido app, slido.com, and then IMEX22, if you have thoughts, pop them in there. There's some you can choose between, and indeed the QR code might be easier than a quick search for that. And as the last few people pop in, good to see you. Give us an idea of what that might mean to all of you. I'll give it another couple of minutes. Minutes is probably an overstatement. Of course, all of us running lots of different types of events, associations, charities, corporates. All of us will be looking at the outcomes slightly differently, but what are we seeing there? Lots of human connection-based answers, I'd say. Those more salesy capture leads or understand interest, which might drive it. Interesting, normally we'd see a lot more waiting there. It's probably all of us coming out of the pandemic and looking at what we missed, which was getting together as people. So let's jump in and start to think about what we might mean by the specifics of engagement. If you can't open with a joke, maybe ask with a trick question. All of those last things we'd bundle up into that under a much bigger title of engagement, or maybe we'd say interactions if we were going to try and turn it into something really tactical. Some examples of interactions there, the kind of things we'll be doing over the next few days, meeting people, chatting, trying to progress conversations, spread knowledge and so forth. And we can measure them in these terms. And as we do, we hopefully build this bigger and better and more detailed picture of the people that we're meeting, that we're talking to, that we're connecting with at an event. So when we start our event, when we launch our event as a planner, hopefully we know a little bit, enough to email, invite, but as people get registered, as they answer questions, as they begin to interact with it, as they begin to interact with each other, we build this bigger and more detailed picture. And the reason we do that, we could summarize maybe under our event objectives. And some of those we'd see above. So brand exposure. Do people know who we are, what we stand for, what we do? Do people trust us? Do they stay with us over the long term? Do they, when they interact with us, do they give us information that we show we've learned? Do we tailor our interactions with them based on all of that information? And last of all, do they have a good experience when with us? When they leave that event, are they thinking they'll come back, or are they looking at alternative options for the future? So these 4 headings, all of those clicks and handshakes and conversations that we see at this tactical interaction level are ultimately important to us as an event planner, because they're driving these much bigger questions of what are people getting out of their event, and how is it helping us as a company putting on that event? Are we seeing a return, in short, on the money that we invested in running that? Traditionally, all of those interactions, those handshakes and clicks and lead scans and conversations happened in this middle portion of the event itself. If we take IBTM, it's the Tuesday morning through to the Thursday evening. What we're seeing And what a lot of this short presentation speaks about is how can we take more advantage of the time before and after that the last few years have shown people are very interested in expanding how they engage. So right now, we're there in the middle, but we had a run up to this event of, in some cases, months, and we have an opportunity post-event to extend all of that interaction further and drive those 4 points of brand exposure, customer experience, the insight that we gain, our ability to show it back to generate loyalty. That period is massively extended to our benefit and that of our delegates. So a lot of what we look at will be this map. How do we stretch that engagement out? Events generally, when you see surveys, will fall in the top 1 or 2 of the biggest returns you can get on the money that you invest in your events. And this probably through a bit of a corporate lens, though we could switch purchase to donate or apply or renew at the end of that and move it across to an association or a charity space. A lot of that is because it has this unparalleled ability to contribute at every stage of this traditional marketing process. So if we were to start over that side, do they know who we are? Are they considering doing business, joining, donating, through to ultimately making that decision to show us a return on our marketing activities? And you're seeing all of those little points along the way. The sheer quantity of touch points that that events can offer through that process. So we're going to start by looking at some trends. I'm going to apply some of those trends to the technology that you can use, and then we'll summarize with a little bit more on the specifics of that. The first trend we're going to look at is the explosion of video. Now, this stat needs a little bit of salt sprinkled around the edge. It's from Cisco. We need to acknowledge that video files are obviously massive and text and images are smaller than that, but it still shows us that in the web as it stands at the moment, there's a huge appetite for video. And that's really grown, I think, out of the last few years. This is our situation, I think, for many of us working the last 2 years, this is how we'd have been sat. I don't know who, show of hands, who received a video they wanted to watch at work in 2018 or 19, but they didn't want to juggle headsets, headphones, they didn't want a colleague peering over and wondering if they were checking something on Facebook or YouTube, and they didn't watch that video they thought they could have had value from, that maybe a supplier or a potential supplier sent you. That's changed massively when we work like this. Sat at home, we can play videos endlessly, blaring away on loudspeakers. We can also record videos without worrying about our colleague in the corner who's watching us do a third take or a fourth take of some opening joke, worrying that we're being judged. So the ability for us all as individuals to create video, short form video that you might send out to a prospect or a supplier, and also to consume that the moment it lands, has massively transformed in the last few years. Even when we go into an office now, we go with this expectation that we'll be on camera, that we'll be listening to things. And so there's no longer that stigma of watching things, no longer an assumption that what we're about to see is some personal social media, but rather that this could be business related. And this transformation in working practices through the period and the kind of shadow thereafter has obviously changed how we can interact with video. We see that driven by a lot of the success stories of the pandemic. So probably the biggest one is TikTok. You'll have noticed, I guess through the summer, all of the attempts for people to leap on the TikTok bandwagon. People like Instagram, massively successful in their own right, still looking hard at the static imagery that used to be the center of that platform. How can they turn it into videos and, more importantly, into short form reels that are very bingeable, snackable? Even this is from Strava, amazing superhero Catalan mountaineer Kilian Jornet. If you jumped on his feed 2-3 years ago, you'd have seen Strava's iconic orange maps. And in fact, if you browsed on the platform, all you'd see is orange maps of what have my friends been doing in the mountains or similar. Now this is what you'd see. Everyone's trying to jump into this place where video can form part of their platform, because what they've seen from TikTok as an example is that there's a huge appetite for these short form videos that will get eyes on the page. This then, I think, still talking about pandemic experiences, is a lot of what we saw in the evenings. And what it defined perhaps is this shift from TV as a schedule, content is a schedule, I want to watch X, that's Monday at 9 a.m., through to I want to watch what I want, when I want, endlessly. And so this availability of highly curated, tailored to the individual, near unlimited video content that you get to schedule as you want has again been a trend. We've seen the last few years particularly domino to a point where we can now exploit it for our events. So let's take that trend, summarized as video is everywhere, more watchable than ever, with higher expectations, and look at where we might apply it to an event. So this is before. Remember, a lot of what we're looking at here is not the during, which incidentally is a fantastic time to create video. It's a source of content in itself, but rather where can these things land? So before an event, if we were to come over here and break these ones down, looking at, say, a know before you go email. Super important to know, when do I arrive, what do I need to wear, what's happening when. These can end up incredibly detailed. If we get everything in there, you have this situation of, well, for the earnest people, detail fatigue, where we've read everything. We know when we're meant to be there, but the joy, the excitement, the expectation of the event is lost in all of that kind of pre-event homework. Or for other people, they don't read it at all, they don't look at all, and they arrive confused and possibly annoyed that they don't know where to go because they didn't do that pre-event homework. So if we take video here, it's a fantastic way to complement some of those resources you'll be sharing ahead of an event with all of those details for the people that want them to be searchable, easily referenced. And you can add to it, let's call it some trailers, something that can include a little bit more hype, that can have an inspirational music track, that can have quick cuts of previous events, that can show your keynote speaker in their environment, and hopefully generate some of that excitement, some of those brand values, express them better, and thereby complement all of the drier information that you've additionally had to share ahead of time. As people consume that, of course, this is all tracked, so this can lead them down other avenues. If I skipped speaker A, if I watched speaker B, what I get in terms of follow-up emails and a tailored agenda can be driven by those decisions. You already know, if I watched a trailer all about speaker B 3 times over, that I'm probably very excited about watching him or her speak. If I've skipped another, perhaps not. So when all of these registration emails and so forth are followed up to build an agenda, we can have that embedded in. The event happens. Again, fantastic source of video. What do we do now? So one of the key things is to get this open as quickly as possible for other people to consume. So all of this can be recorded live, can then be served up on demand after the event. Again, the continued watching that people do here can continue to shape our understanding of who they are, what they want from our event as well. We will jump into this a little bit later because there are some things we can do here as this blends with the rest of our wider marketing plans that become really interesting. Let's jump onto our second trend here to translate across. So this is, again, for many of us, myself included, the last 2 years of work and what it looked like. I think there's what I sometimes think of a kind of sauna moment, the Finnish sauna. Everyone who's used to looking at each other clothed has now stripped off and sprinted across a snowy landscape to jump naked into the river together. We've all seen each other's kitchens and living rooms by this stage. And so when back in 2017, 2018, 2019, people would cautiously jump onto something, video off, or white wall behind them, that sheer deluge of the pivot as people tried to leap in and maintain normal working practices from home has opened up houses, backgrounds. People are much, much more comfortable flipping on video in any circumstance, especially from home. That spans, of course, our daily lives. And so when Maybe a few years ago, we might have considered an audience a little bit too old for this type of interaction. We need to remember now the sheer number of grandparents who met their new family members over video for the first time. The pervasive nature of the FaceTimes and the Zooms, through to the Google Hangouts, through to the Zooms and the Adobe Connects, the Intrados and the heavier duty, and there's many, many names I'm not mentioning there. But this is an embedded part of our life. I still call my parents on FaceTime. Pre-pandemic, that would always have been a voice-only call. And so that comfort level with being on camera and comfort level across demographics at using those tools firsthand has changed massively. Has it gone as far as this? There's a big question. Probably the answer is no, not yet. I think when we talk metaverse, there's always rightly some skepticism around what will it give me that I can't get from going to a show in person. I always look out here at IBTM or similar and think what an opportunity this is for that kind of event. We look at that landscape, you could have the Brazilian stand with the rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef. You imagine with the cost and time of creating those environments eliminated, what a metaverse IBTM might look like as a way of complementing the interaction that you're going to get in person. The reality is we aren't here yet, and yet there's some really interesting signifiers of interest. One of them, less interesting than all those beautiful pixels up there, is are people spending money on this? And when I think of metaverse, maybe a first step is, are people willing to spend money themselves to customize something? I tried endlessly ahead of today to find a digital figure for all of the money spent customizing avatars in every system in the world. And that figure doesn't exist on Google today. However, we can find proxies. You can find the weird outliers where someone spent $10,000 to $60,000 on a digital kimono for someone, their avatar to wear, or sneakers. A mass market figure, let's take Pokemon Go. 481 million spent in their least successful year on the digital items, the glasses, the shirts, the shorts that will customize the characters there. Two-dimensional characters seen briefly by their friends whilst playing the game. 480 million spent in that. That figure alone tells me there's interest in customizing avatars at personal expense. And that maybe maps out 1, 2, 3 dominoes, and this is 10. This is maybe an IBTM 2030 or similar. Still, the summary of all of that is appetite and fluency. Fluency with new technologies and digital tools that people haven't used prior, and how that might be applied to an event. Let's jump in with the pre-event again and applying some of them there. I think if there's one I'd pick out of that list, it's the third one down. You often find networking events, say at an IBTM, where some cliques will get together, and it can be very hard for a first-timer to find a socially non-awkward way to join conversations that they could absolutely contribute to and would like to benefit from. So well ahead of time, we can build into our agenda, given people's comfort with digital meetings, these introductory sessions where they can meet with each other, where they can start that networking process, where they'll recognize faces. They probably won't know how tall that person is or what they look like from behind, and there'll be the usual post-pandemic hijinks when they meet, but they'll recognize a face across a crowded room. The people that really want to get the very most out of the opportunities at the event go into it connected. They're also, of course, joining that platform earlier, which will lead to the scheduling of appointments. And all of those clicks, again, is shaping your understanding of what will come. Post-event, we've now hopefully built new communities. There'll be existing communities who have good ways of discussing things with them, with each other already. But there'll be new communities come together that don't have those tools in place yet. And our hub can provide that. We can have people jump back on, and in a second we'll see they can do other things there too. But as they jump back into your event post, you can continue to give them those benefits of a place in which to converse, engage with the topics that you raised, and perhaps a way to continue to contribute. Oh, sorry, I thought there was a question there out loud. Apologies. An opportunity to engage with each other and continue driving all the outcomes that you had planned for them. So the last trend I'm going to pop in here, again, the last few years, a lot of our world looked like this, booking things in advance and scanning QR codes to engage with stuff once we got there. There are a lot of fantastic technologies that still exist, things like beacons, for instance, those little climbing wall holds I always thought they looked like, that ping you messages by Bluetooth as you approach, that never really took off. But the pandemic has had an interesting way of pushing particularly QR code engagement to new levels. There's an expectation now that I'll be scanning things through my day to access the ability to engage with the place I am, whether that's as simple as ordering food or entering a competition, as I might when I go into a coffee shop, or something more exciting, more engaging that we could add to our event. More on that in a second. One of the reasons I think that's staying in place is a sub-trend to sustainability that deserves its own set of separate sessions, of course. But in the context of sustainability, who wants to be the person who goes back from a QR code I scan to see a digital menu that changes live, that costs me very little to produce, to a non-sustainable stack of menus that get torn and beaten and changed and I have to reprint and may get me accused of not doing the best I could be doing to further all of our hopes for the environment. So this is a kind of a magnet, a source of gravity that keeps some of these digital enhancements in place. Where this goes next, again, the metaverse version of this. I have daughters, one not yet appeared, one about so high, one about this high, and the one about this high is engaging with clothes shopping in a way I never thought anyone would, let alone myself. Going in, searching digitally for clothes to wear, all of those pinging to an app, her friends leaping on, not on the trip with her, but able to say, that's great, I hate that, etc., etc., and creating really an event out of a simple shopping trip. So these digital enhancements, particularly driven by app and digital interaction, are then driving a lot of what we get out of these mini events, out of daily life. We'll apply it briefly to an event though. So let's think about the timeline. We have our event coming up. If we take what we just discussed a second ago, bringing together our groups of first timers, for instance, that's when we open this, I'm calling it Attendee Hub there. I'll explain a little bit more in a second. A virtual platform, let's think, a virtual place in which these first timers could get together, or other people that wanted to view all of the speakers. They might still be making a decision to attend the event, of course, and so this could be leading to their actual decision to buy a ticket, or it could be they just want to get excited, meet other people, and come in as well prepared as possible. This then blends through, nearer the event, to the mobile app version of it. The two things will play together. More on that in a second. But the key thing is, as the event comes up, we're putting via a mobile app in the hands of the people attending all of these things like live Q&A and polls and networking and wayfinding and around an event that we can now be confident there'll be an appetite for, and we know will help them get the most out of our event and drive them towards all the objectives we have. Post-event, all that video created, now online. People can view this, of course, as we discussed a second ago. Some of the things we can look to do beyond that, of course, is then to shift people to register post-event. And the post-event registration is a rather weird concept, right? I haven't been to an event, it's happened, and now I've registered for it. Because someone who did go watched the video afterwards, was able to share it with me, was able to say, hey Matt, you missed out. This is exactly something you'd be interested in. I can jump on. And of course it will say, hey, Bob said you should come here. Who are you? I'm Matt, here's my email address. Great, here's the video. Wow, that was good. What else happened at this event? Can I go next year? And of course, what else is happening in the wider marketing plan? So this track through from the event content created to the event content shared to people registering post-event to gain access to an on-demand library, it's become a big source of registration for many of our clients afterwards. It's a quick summary here. So I quickly check the time that we have there. So quick summaries. explosion of video. How do we use that to give people richer experiences in advance that help communicate not just the details of what's going to happen, but the spirit and the excitement, and really help sell the brand experience we're looking to deliver. And then post-event, give them the ability, as they're expecting, to jump back in, re-experience, share. Secondly, how do we help bring people together? The fact everyone's now that much more comfortable sharing their video, their face, their home on tools, that they're more comfortable using them, gives us an ability to launch these prep sessions, get people involved well ahead of time. They can come in even as a first timer, knowing people in the room, knowing people they want to speak with, and equipped with tools to do that, which they can use in their hands. So using the app, its messaging, its networking capabilities, the wayfinding built into that, the ability to take all of those connections they built that they're excited about and meet up easily when they get there. So a few quick technologies. I'm going to use terms, I'm going to use C-event terms here, but I'll try and translate them across. By the way, if you want to talk about any of those, we are just there, literally through the gauzy curtains. And moreover, we have free coffee and free cake, and water as well, if that's your preferred poison of the three. Attendee Hub, when I say that, what I really mean is a platform that is both a virtual tool and a mobile app at once. There's some great stats on fax machines, if you can remember them, about the number of conversations and how they grow with the number of machines. You have 2 fax machines, you can have 1 conversation. You have 16 fax machines, you can have 119 conversations. A good way of thinking of this is a 500-person event. You add 1 more delegate, you've added 500 opportunities to connect, because that 1 person is a new option to meet all of those people. This tool helps us keep all our audiences together. Particularly, it's a hybrid event. We don't want to take 100 people online as one community, 100 people in person. We want a single audience of 200, because that law of geometric progressions enables disproportionately more connections when we keep people in one place with tools optimized for the environments in which they're working. All of that video we're creating during an event, we need a way to produce it, because people's expectations are way higher in terms of our video quality than they've ever been before. 2.5, 3 years of virtual events has left a very crowded landscape with lots of perfectly adequate video that does unfortunately blend together in people's eyes. There's expectations around the production quality, and a tool like this embedded into your virtual platform that allows you to professionally transition between speakers, pop-up polls, and add an extra level of production quality helps us in standing out in that very crowded digital landscape for our events, whether we're viewing them during or whether we're returning to the video afterwards, as discussed. And when we do that, that's where we look at something we nominally call a video center, a kind of upgrade beyond that on-demand library, because at this point it's now blending into our wider marketing efforts. This is a place where the sessions we'd like people to review have landed, but it's also a place where we could add digital content from all our other marketing channels that will help them extend their journey into the review of a product or a program or a white paper that we might have produced and supported with its own content. So this is where we hopefully toss the stone and the ripples begin to spread out to help them across. So some quick ideas there. Thank you very much for your patience throughout. I'm not certain we have a vast amount of time for questions. I'll look to the crew at the back of the room for that. 1 or 2 we hear. Fantastic. I think there might be some popping up on a on an iPad over here. Let me have a quick peek. Oh, wow. Got it. For a second I thought, wait, is this 1 question, 2 questions? Wow, they're coming in so quickly. Let me have a quick peek on here. Feel free to jump on the app if you have one. Otherwise, it looks like I may have answered them all in my little ramble through things. I will be available at the end as well. Or, again, if you pop to the C-event stand, we will furnish you with cake and coffee and hopefully answers to your questions. But magic. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful IBTM. Thank you.